So again, thanks everyone for being with us. Today, we actually have a good buddy of mine joining us. We're going to be discussing the balance of work and life. A lot of people now are dealing with this new struggle that we haven't really been familiar with, and we're going to talk about those hurdles, about benefits that come from it. We're gonna kind of tear this topic apart, and I got an awesome guy here to do it with us. So everyone, this is Berkley Harmon from Insperity. Berkley, say hi to the people.
Hello, everyone. Glad to be here. My first one with you guys, and I'm hoping there's many more.
Of course, of course. So I'll give people a little bit of insight. Me and Berkley go back a few years. We actually met through one of my consulting clients, Thusio Executive Club. So they were doing high-end client entertainment through this sports storytelling method. And Berkley became a member, and I got to meet him at some of those events, and we've been growing a great relationship ever since. And I've been learning about Insperity, the business that he works with, which of course he'll give you guys some insight on that a little later. But just to get you familiar with Berkley, let me give you a little bio about him. And that's a sharp picture right there, Berkley. I was going to tell you that. And I was used to seeing you with the glasses. You didn't took it off for the photo. I was like, okay, I see what he's doing here.
The photographer, I can't take credit. It was the photographer.
Hey, how much Photoshop work did we have to do before we put that up?
Exactly.
So here's a little bit of background on Berkley. So Berkley Harmon III is a certified business performance advisor with Insperity, a human resources company where he helps small and mid-sized companies, schools, and nonprofit organizations provide cost-effective benefits, human resource services, and technology to help their organizations compete better and grow. Prior to his role with Insperity, Berkley was a business owner himself, serving small business in New Jersey and PA, helping them with their insurance and human resource needs for 6 years before he sold his company to join Insperity. It's another reason why me and Berkley vibe so well. It's that entrepreneurial spirit and drive. He definitely has it. After graduating with a BA degree in business management from Eastern University, Berkley spent 10 years of his career in the pharmaceutical industry with GlaxoSmithKline and Merck & Co. During his time with GlaxoSmithKline, Berkley also received his MBA from Villanova University School of Business in their executive MBA program. As part of his MBA program, he spent part of a semester overseas in Chile and Argentina, studying American business investments in South America and international business, which I'm super jealous about that, Berkley. I have never been to South America, but I desperately want to go. So I'll have to pick your brain about some of that stuff.
It's beautiful.
Indeed.
It's on my list as well.
He has a family of 9, including his wife, Dr. Sandra Harmon, his namesake, Berkley Harmon IV, and his 6 siblings. Berkley loves what he does and sees every new day as a new opportunity for positive change. So again, please welcome Berkley Harmon to Thursday Thoughts. So
well, when you got a family of 9 people, we sure got the right person to talk about that work-home balance. That's for sure.
Yeah, my son's right next door, homeschooling right now as we speak.
Nice.
My mother, who is babysitting, is upstairs with my son right now as we
Uh-huh.
And I think we're going to be getting a lot into these family dynamics, not only the unique ones on this call, but I'm sure we've all heard of some unique situations amongst our friends, family, colleagues, and stuff like that. But just to kind of kick things off, just talking about life in 2020. I mean, it's interesting because at this point, I almost feel like we're beating a dead horse. I know when we first started talking about the new shift of the life we're living, it was always that, hey, how long is this going to be? We'll be good by August, September. And, the realization is starting to sink in that this is kind of how we're living for a while. I don't know if that while ends in 2021. I don't know if it's 2022, maybe further. I think there are going to be an impact that lasts for a very long time in a lot of different industries, which we'll kind of touch on. But the first thing that this really impacted, especially for a lot of the business folk watching, is work. Kevin, I have seen you in person once in the last 7 months, 8 months, and I'm pretty sure that was for our fantasy football draft. So that wasn't even work related. But we've been working from home, ever since March. staying safe as we can, but, finding out how are you equally as productive and hopefully even more productive working from home. How has that really impacted you, Berkley, and some of your clients, and what kind of stories are you hearing in that, new working space that we have now?
Yeah, it was a huge change, that second week of March for everyone. Just to give you a little backdrop, we were coming back from Los Cabos, Mexico. The company takes the top performers and their spouses on this trip every year, and we go through the airport and we hear everything from my mother-in-law while we're there. She's buying hand sanitizer while she's here watching the kids and we don't really know what's happening. But after we talk to her, when our flight's coming back and we go through the airports, no one's checking us for anything. We figure, okay, maybe it's not that big a deal. Well, we got back on the 4th, and as you know, by the 16th, the whole country was shut down. And it was a huge adjustment. The shock to students, the shock to workers and employees, and what do we do? For me, I'm in business development, sales, marketing, and Zach, I'm a relationship guy. I like to build those relationships, connect them. I like to see my relationships do businesses with each other. And my first thought from a work perspective was, wow, how? Like how it's one of the strongest elements of my success. Like, how am I going to actually be able to do that now? I love the fact that in sales, in marketing, in business development, every day is different. I'm having coffee with Zach at 1 minute. I'm at a luncheon with another group of different business leaders in another. I'm on a one-on-one in someone's office, giving them a proposal. Every day is different if you really love business development, sales, and marketing. And now aesthetically, it's basically the same. I'm doing those things, but my office is my place now. It's the place for work. It's the place for work-life balance. It's the place for school. My home is all those things now. So from a working perspective, I had to adjust some things, right? I had to stop leaving the shorts on with the shirt over top and just start getting dressed some days, right? I made a conscious effort to say, I'm gonna make this day feel more like work, even though it was. And the balance of, prior to this, you balanced work and life separately, and now you're balancing them together. So it's a whole nother dynamic to say, my kid's off at school and I got to get home in a decent hour for dinner with my family and those kind. I'm here the whole time now. So it shook everyone, I'm sure. But as the weeks and months went on, I've been able to adjust and get back to some of that success that I had prior to us being locked down.
And Kevin, tell me, like, coming from a position of, running a marketing firm, that was entrenched with clients and has employees in the office, how has this shift been for you coming from that managerial standpoint?
I think just it's been an adjustment. It's weird managing people that you're not seeing. And not that I would ever consider myself to be anywhere close to a micromanager, but there is something to be said to, walk around and talk to your employees and, hear what they're working on and see what they're doing. And, now I just have no idea, you're at home doing your thing and he's at home doing his thing and she's doing her thing. And, obviously there's a lot of check-ins and we're all talking to each other and, the proof is in the pudding. I see the results, but, I don't really know what's going on at, particular times, which again, I'm okay. I like to take a step back. I like to give, my team that autonomy and, the ability to, do things that, on their own time and their own way. But it doesn't work for everybody, and I know there's a lot of leaders out there that are really struggling to not see their entire team, 40 hours a week. It works for me. I like seeing how some of our clients and even some of our staff who, maybe have had trouble embracing some of the technology in the past, how maybe they didn't really have much of a choice, but they're doing a good job. They're jumping on board. This concept of Zoom, what Berkley was saying about, having coffee with, people and having lunch with people. I mean, for some people, that is the only way to network. You have to be in person. You have to shake a hand. You have to, share a coffee. Now I think people are realizing there are other options out there. It's interesting. I just said shake a hand. I mean, who knows if we'll ever shake, a client's hand again.
Right.
Even if we see them in person, we may not be shaking hands anymore.
Yeah.
But I think it's just opening up people's eyes to, there are other ways to do this, whether it's networking, whether it's, a sales meeting, whether it's conducting day-to-day business, 40
Right.
hours a week. You said, when are we going to get normal, or will people be going back to work in 2021? Will they be going back to 2022? Real question, will they be going back at all? If this model is working, why stop?
Right. Right. Good point. And I'm actually going to put all these on the screen because they all relate in some form or fashion. We've kind of touched on all these topics already, because they do blend together. There isn't that clean delineation from work, networking, school, like it all is merged together, which I think that's one of those things where, some people can handle that well. And for a lot of folks, that's very difficult. And again, you know me, Kevin, I'm a workaholic that does a very bad job of setting boundaries in terms of work hours.
Yep.
So, I'll work all day. And now that I'm home all day, working all day, I kind of have this weird thing where I weave in and out of like home life and work life. And I try to put on my calendar, like, don't work in this block, whether I want to watch TV or work out or just talk to my wife, like find time to do something different, because if not, I could literally end up working all day and it's not good for you. You do need that balance to kind of mellow you out. Now, one thing I do not have, and Kevin, you don't have to deal with this, to any significant degree yet, is school and education
Right.
during this time period. I'm really curious, Berkley, if you can give the folks a little bit of insight as how that's changed for you and any sort of tips you might have for folks in relation to managing school and children during this time.
And Zach, is the perfect segue because my situation is crazy because my son, Berkley Harmon the fourth, is a second grader. I have a junior in college right now, Westchester University, back home, logged on in her room. I have another sophomore at Kennesaw State University in Georgia who's on campus, living there, doing back and forth. And I can keep going because you saw the number of kids I have. But so I still have the element I had before. If I just go to the ones, and I got a couple, one in high school, but if I go to the ones in college, it's still the element of cash at me some money and the things that they're doing because some of them are there. And then there's the element of one of them's here now. So I can actually get involved and see more intimately what she's doing with school, which is a positive. You don't get to see that when they're off and gone. So one of the things I did in the house was designate, there's designated areas. My son has his area set up. His desk is set up in the dining room. All his stuff is there, ready to go, because he doesn't like to be upstairs in his room by himself. And he's, I can walk from my office. So I'm set up here so I can work. And my daughter is set up in her room. I upped my internet. Really was a big one because now we're all on it all day at hours where we weren't even home before.
Mm-hmm.
So the one plus has been segregating the areas and then sharing responsibilities. When she gets a break, she'll help him out. And she knows I'm busy, I'm on a call. I have to balance lunches now for the three of us. My wife's a doctor, so she actually has to go to the office. There is no working from home for her.
Right.
So there's pluses to this entire piece, the working, the education, the networking, the socialization. There are pluses and minuses to both, just like normal life, right? I get to see my family more and socialize with them more and be more intimately a part of what they're doing in life,
Mm-hmm.
right? I can see and be a part of that, where I would miss a lot of it being at work and seeing clients. That's kind of the plus, right?
Right.
My son's absolutely loving that he gets to do school and daddy's home. But then there's the other side of, again, the part that made me successful, and that was a big part of my success, is the ability to network. And I had to change on the fly. I had to start doing, we're going to talk about some of this stuff later, but some virtual wine tasting, some virtual education on HR and what it means for small and mid-sized companies, some virtual, benefits work on how to harness benefits and how important they are now, especially in this time of COVID, for your employees to have some place to go in case they get sick. What about those employees that don't have it? So it's a balancing act, but I would say for your mental state, focus on the positives of it, like you would do with anything else. You have a rough day sometimes, you get back to focusing on the positives, and you come out of it a lot better. And I do that with my son. When he does something well with school, I make sure I acknowledge that. Much more involved in my daughter in her third year of college now, being able to actually give her some guidance and assistance because she's right here. So I try to focus on those positives.
Right. That's awesome.
And I think another positive is, we talked about, having that balance and knowing that, this is when you work and this is when, this needs to be your personal time when you're not working, which I think is important. But it's also nice that some people have more of that flexibility now. That, previously it was expected that, you start work at 8, you end work at 5, and that's your schedule, and don't ask to adjust it, because that's what it is. Well, now for people that may have some sort of commitment at, parts of the day, isn't it nice that you can take a break in the middle of the day, help your son with school, go to your doctor's appointment, whatever it is you might have to be. And it's a little bit easier to then take care of that work at, 8 o'clock at night, if that's what you need to do. We may not want to make a habit of it. It's not always great for business or great for that work life, separation, but just the fact that it's at least an option now, I think can be a positive also.
Yeah, one of the things I'm at a level with my company, and Zach knows this, where I have complete autonomy, right? And I've had it for a long time. If you succeed in sales and marketing, you get that, right? They're going to let you. So I've been free to move about and I barely saw my office anyway, right? I would go maybe one day a week. So that part wasn't the adjustment as much as just, again, aesthetically, right? This is great that I'm doing this with you guys today. It breaks my whole day up. It's something different than I did yesterday or last week, but aesthetically, it's still the same. It's Zoom, it's my home, it's my kids, it's all those things. So I have to find what I found tough to get over, what I had to get over was, how do I get that passion, energy that I feed off of with the connections and the relationships? How can I bring that about? How can I bring that back? And I'm telling you, this what we're doing right now helps me in that area. I've got another one I'm doing for a group next week, all around liability with COVID and how that's changing for business now. So you have to find ways within work to make it exciting, because we still spend a lot of time doing it. And to Zach's point, now that you're home, sometimes you might spend more time working. So it's finding that. I still try to find that happiness in it, because as long as I find that, then I know success is on the other end.
Right. And that's kind of a great segue into our next topic, kind of talking about challenges and opportunities. One thing that I wanted to throw out before we moved on was I've found, and I don't know if this is like a good thing or a bad thing, I still haven't figured it out. My networking and my socializing have become one. So I've joined or become more involved with like my alumni association, and they're providing virtual opportunities on a regular basis. And I kind of look at them as socializing more than I look at them as networking. And I've been invited to some networking groups, some that are strictly networking, which, that just kind of is what it is. But it seems like I've been trying to combine those two together almost to preserve time, or just the fact that like I miss people in general. So even networking is more social to me because, I lived off of meeting people before. So I don't know if that same effect has happened with either of you two, but I was just curious about that. Maybe I'm the only one, but like I've just been kind of merging those together a lot.
Yeah, and to truth be told, Zach, that was my social life prior to being locked in. Like I really didn't get. I actually merged that with really getting my wife out. You know, charity events that we would support. It was still a business opportunity at those events, right? So I'm still, even though I'm at this black tie event, and I love the fact that we're giving back and we're supporting it. I may make 3 connections there that in the next month, one of them is going to may become a client of mine. So I completely agree with the blending of the socializing and networking at the same time. And as busy as we are, and as much as we're trying to do, it's actually a good formula for success. It actually, because the last thing you want, listen, my wife's a doctor. She doesn't do what I do, but she's great to have next to me at these events. What she does is an interesting conversation for other people at the table. Something I tripped over in bringing her to these events and said, this is something that really is helping me. So I started to do it more and more and blending the networking and the socializing. And then the other thing is that with that, Zach, is time. Now you've condensed the amount of time you have to spend on each one of those, because kind of you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone, which for me that helped a lot because I could get home sooner, and I did make some connections, and I did show her a good time out, all at the same time.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I've always liked that approach too. I think, I don't care if you're going to a networking event or a fundraiser event or what it is, everybody is always there to sell. Nobody is ever there because they intend to buy. It doesn't work that way. You don't go to a networking event because I'm looking for a service or a product. You go because you have something that you want to talk about. And when everybody is there with the same goal of selling, it's going to be pretty hard to sell. So my approach has always been, not that I necessarily say like, great, I can't wait to go to the social event, but my approach has always been, let's try to keep it a little more casual, keep it a little bit more fun, let the relationships grow organically. And if something good comes out of it, that's awesome, and that doesn't mean when I'm hanging out with my buddies on Saturday night that I'm there to sell. But yeah, I mean, if I'm going to a business event, I try to make it as casual and fun as I can. Let the business be secondary. It'll happen. If it's meant to happen, it'll happen when it happens.
Right. And I agree with both of those points. I think I'm in the same sort of space. But what's been, I guess, difficult for me is like that scenario is very organic in person.
Right.
When you then take that online, it is odd, to say the least. I'm able to actually take a social virtual experience and network. I haven't been able to do a networking virtual experience and make it social, where before every networking event I would go to had that social element to it. It seems now if you're networking virtually, it is like we're networking. You get a second to speak, tell about your thing. The next person goes, we go in order, and hopefully you have some conversations on LinkedIn or offline. But there isn't that personal, like you're not able to use body language the same way and interact the same way. And I think those are some of my advantages.
Well, it's also tough when you go to an event in person with 50 people. We can break off, and just the 2 of us or the 3 of us can have our little side conversation. Yeah. We can talk about whatever we want to. Whereas when you have these 50-person events on Zoom, you're in a room with 50 people. That, and I know they have the breakout rooms, but a lot of people aren't companies. They're not taking advantage of those breakouts. So yeah, when you get your chance to talk and you've got an audience of 50, not an audience of 1 or 2.
Yeah,
you don't have a choice. You're talking business. So
I found one key element that's the same in both of those situations, and it kind of it flipped the switch for me. It's the follow-up, right? So if it's the same whether I'm at an event 50 people and I make 10 connections, how do I follow up? Or whether I'm on a Zoom and and Kevin and I are there and we make a connection, I need to set up a one-on-one Zoom with Kevin. I don't care what it's about, right? That's the part I was missing the first probably 90 days of this, like something's missing, right? Because the follow-up was easier before. Get some coffee, it's now those things are gone because you're like, okay, we can't do that right now. So how do I follow up? And what I've been doing is both socially and from a business network perspective is shoot an email. Hey, let's get a quick 30 minutes on Zoom to follow up from that event we just had. If I send those to 6 people that I connected with on that event, you'll get 4 good meetings where now you can peel back the layers of what you do and what they do a little further.
Yep.
So that's the one thing that has helped me in the second half of this is a follow-up that's similar. It's not the same, but it's similar to the way I followed up before.
Yeah.
Right.
Real life example. I mean, you mentioned your second grade son, learning virtually right now. My wife is a kindergarten teacher who was teaching virtually and is now teaching hybrid. And, I would have loved to get in a conversation with you. If we were talking one-on-one, we would have had a fun chat. Here we are live on Zoom with people, other people watching and participating. Guess what? We're not going to talk about that right now. We're sticking to business.
Perfect point. Yes, perfect. That's where you would have blended them both, organically blended them both. But I found in that follow-up, when I bring someone back and it's just us 2 on a Zoom, we do end up getting some of that out. Some of that does. And so that part of it, I even, full disclosure, I got to do it more. I have to put that in more because there is value in just, let's have a quick call. Let's do a quick Zoom and talk about what we just experienced in that event or at that networking event.
I will say this before we go further. This is a good little group. I feel like we went about 30 minutes on that first initial topic, and we didn't even get into the meat and potatoes yet. So I like the energy we have going here. This kind of plays off one of the last things you said, Berkley, talking about these challenges and opportunities. One thing you mentioned about how stuff like this breaks it up for you. This is a little different from what you might be doing, and that kind of stuff is helpful. One of the things you mentioned to me was that every day begins to look the same is a really big challenge. I'll let you put all these challenges out here. Clearly, our sort of main sort of focus here is balancing everything: the kids, the work, home. That's not easy for everyone. Staying productive while multitasking. I really want to dig into that too. But Berkley, give us some of the struggles you see often related to these challenges, and how do you overcome some of this stuff, like especially that staying productive while multitasking. Like that's a difficult one for me because I already have issues with keeping my attention on something.
Yeah.
So I'm curious your thoughts towards those.
Yeah, that one's tough. One of the things that's helped me there, and I'll jump right to that third bullet first, is more organization. I was organized before, right? But we all have our pieces of us that are organized, and then there's the organized chaos. You want both, right? Because that's a good diverse mix of your day, your week, your month, your year. But I've had to increase the organized part of it, meaning, the whiteboard that you guys can't see with the bullet points that are in bold orange print. I'm going to knock those out today, like period, right? Regardless, and I already know I'm going to homeschool my son till 1 o'clock. I'm going to get involved in that. I already know, I'm going to have some direction with him and my daughter, but I am not going to miss those 6 bullets I have up there. I'm going to meet those today. So the multitasking part of it for me was to also put in every day. I have 3 to 6 bullets on that whiteboard that I'm going to meet them in the day, period, no matter what comes. Because again, you're home. So to give you another point of that staying productive, you're multitasking, the doorbell rings with something new, right? So it just gets infused where that's not going to happen at work. You're not home. So it gets infused. So the thinking has to be, no matter what comes, right? Those bullets on the board, they're going to get met, right? As long as I meet those, if I hit 2 more that aren't on there, then I've exceeded what I've set for myself for that day. So I find myself doing that more than I did prior to having the freedom to just organically do so much, because I was in so many places and in front of so many different people. So that's one way I've been able to do it, is to continue to go back and say, wait a minute, it's 3 o'clock and only 4 of them have check marks. What are these other 2? Why didn't I get them done? Let me get them done. So that determines whether I'm going to work later, start dinner earlier. All of that flows into what I'm doing in the house, or, am I cooking at night, which is a hobby of mine, or, am I ordering food, because I still need to get to those 3 bullets, and one of them is going to take a while. So that's the productive part of it. And I went through it, Zach, to go through the other end of that. I'm working on a book. I'm working every day, and I'm homeschooling. So I went through this phase of, man, I can't get myself out the chair sometimes, because I was thinking about all of it. And then I just had to organize it. Every day, there's at least 3 to 6 bullets up there, depending on how big the work is for those bullets. I'm going to knock those down every day. And these other 2 on here, especially the first one, every day looking the same. When you talk about challenges, that was a challenge for me, right? Because I love what I do. Marketing and sales, one of the beautiful things about it, and I think people who cannot do it or be successful at it don't embrace the fact that their day is different every day, right? They're not going to the same cubicle, doing the same things. They're not, because if you are, you're probably not going to be successful in this business. You're meeting people, you're walking into events that you've never been at before. You're telling your story to at least 1 new person every day. That means you've told 365 people at least that year your story about what you do. That element, I had to go find that. I had to get that back. Mm-hmm. And the Zoom was a way to do it. And those one-on-ones with Zoom, when I get emails now from referrals and people wanting to engage with me, I immediately say, hey, let's jump on a quick Zoom, right? Because that's my way of now having this connection we're having right now. And it's fine if they say, hey, can I just give you a call? Great. But if I don't put it out there, then it's really something that works good for me that I'm not going after. So right. The multitasking and staying productive, you have to find ways to kind of review how you did it prior to working from home and COVID, and then adjust those to get yourself back to that level in this new virtual world we're in.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember that everybody's different. So I mean, what's working for Berkley may not work for Zach. What's working for Zach may not work for some of our viewers. I think we've all got good tips. At this point, we've all been doing it for 6, 7, 8 months. And we have good advice and everything. But at the end of the day, you got to figure out what works for you. And I think that's one of the benefits of working from home is you can figure out what works for you. When you're in the office, guess what? If you're told to sit in that cubicle, you're sitting in that cubicle. Now when I get on these Zooms, it's always a guessing game of where's Kevin going to be sitting this time, and that's a good thing. That's my way. Even if I'm not leaving the house, that's my way of getting getting some different scenery and just something a little different. And at least I've got a few different couches, a few different chairs. Sometimes I'm outside, sometimes I'm inside. Today's a dreary day, so I'm inside. But just mix it up. Do what works for you.
Right. And I'm actually going to try that method of putting those 3 to 6 bullet points somewhere really visible, because I think part of my issue has always been I usually have about 20 to 30 bullet points. So right. I just go attack, and then at the end of the day, there's still like 10, 12 things that didn't get done, and I'm just like, okay. So I'm going to try to prioritize and put these bigger ones there and let it not be as much of a distraction in getting other things done.
Yeah, I have a massive whiteboard, but my massive whiteboard is in my office, not at home. So it's more about moving. I'm a very digital person, and I take all my notes digitally and everything. But I've never, all my the little stuff, as we say. Never really made it into my digital lists because I just threw it on the whiteboard and eventually I got it done, and then it would come off the whiteboard. Well, now I got to keep track of every little tiny thing digitally because if it's not on a list somewhere, it's not getting done.
And because most of the people listening right now clearly haven't seen it, he's not kidding. The whiteboard in Kevin's office is the entire wall, and it's color coded with names of current clients, potential clients, business things, like the whole, and it changes. Like you don't notice it changes unless you sit in the office enough. But
Yeah.
I'll go in there and sit, and I'll just be like, "That's new. That's new. That's different." And we would chat about it. I was thinking about that. How are you working without having that board? But
It's been interesting.
it's good you found another solution.
And it's going to be fun at some point. I mean, I've been to the office a couple times. I haven't really looked at that whiteboard, but it's going to be interesting to look at the board at some point and see
Yep.
how much of it is actually still valid today. You know,
Right, and
some of
updating
it
it.
probably is, but
Right.
But it's when you walk, yeah, when you're walking by it at home, it's a reminder like, whoa, those three were important. I need to get to them. I need to shut things down for a second and get to them. And
Right.
it's helped me get back to a level of productivity that, I had prior. It's
yeah.
really.
And that second bullet point, the balancing kids, work, and home. You know, it's usually you have that mindset when there's stuff you have to take care of for work, you do it while you're at work, and when there's stuff you have to take care of for home, for personal, you do it at home. You know, on your personal time. Well, now it's tough. You know, you're sitting at home in your personal space, even though it's work hours, and there's that quick task that needs to be taken care of, whether it's a chore at the house or I got to call the, electrician or whatever you got to do. And, I'll just do it real quick. That'll be an easy one. Well, guess what? The easy stuff, it never ends up being that easy. So,
Oh yeah, I don't know. My son's a quarterback on his little 85-pound football team. He's been on my Zooms with no shirt on about 4 times now. So, and I'm trying not to get you guys blasted by him, but and you might probably even notice, but I've already talked to him 4 times since we've been sitting here. So it's definitely a balance, but at the same time, I try to find some fun in it because that way, it keeps my days going, it keeps them fun, and that's why we spend a lot of time working. And I'm a true believer in you have to love what you're doing. You have to love the time that you're spending. So if you have some fun in it when you're balancing the kids, working home, I'm getting so many projects done at home. It's ridiculous, stuff that I did not, that I had planned in my head for my house that now I get to take an hour and just do it.
Right.
Well, I try. My dog is a very big part of our brand. She usually comes into the office every day when we're working during normal times, and joins me in meetings and everything. So I try to get her onto the Zoom. She's always hiding away now, but I try to get her onto the Zooms because people like that. They like seeing the dog. I have a 10-month-old son. And in the beginning, I would pull him into a Zoom every once in a while. Just for a quick, bounce on the leg for a few minutes, and then you got to pass them off. We got to get back to business. But people like that stuff, and and some of that is more acceptable. I mean, if I showed up to an in-person meeting with my son in my hands, that would be weird. I can't do that. Zoom. I mean, hey, I'm opening up my house. You can see where I am. There's no secrets. So, let's have a little fun.
Right.
Have to. Gotta make light of it.
Speaking of that, one of the opportunities that come from this is more family time. So it's always good to see Landon on a Zoom, and I'm sure having such a young child, those are some of the main perks for you to be home is, you get to be around your son. I remember when Landon was born and you were in the office, and I'm sure you had moments where you're just like, dang, I wish I was home.
That was tough. Yeah.
I wish I was with him.
Coincidentally, I mentioned my wife's a kindergarten teacher. Her first day back at school after maternity leave was actually the first day of quarantine. So it definitely made things a lot harder for her because she hadn't taught for 3 months, and it was a huge struggle for every teacher. But at least they knew where they were in the lessons. She was coming in really blinded, even more than all the other teachers were. But at the same time, I mean, she was, depressed about having to go back to school and not getting to watch our son, grow. And then here we are. I'm at home with him. She's at home with him, and we had to find that balance and make sure we're all, taking care of work. But it's great that we got to see him, as he developed. And there's advantages. You got to look at the positives for sure.
Oh yeah.
And tell me a little bit, Berkley, kind of about this heightened level of creativity, and also the third bullet, becoming an innovator. Give me some examples of that from you.
Yeah. So what I've found that's happening just across the country and really, the world. Because for a while, the entire world was basically virtual, locked inside. Is that people are becoming more creative and innovating more on things that they just did for prior second nature. So I've had just speaking to networking, I've sponsored and had some wine tastings with the wine school in Philadelphia with wineries in Napa Valley. I'm sending the bottle and the food to my guest house, and the winery spending 40 minutes going through how you taste, how you pair, and then we network at the end, and then again it's the follow up after that. Everyone's loved it so far. I've got Scotch tasting coming up. Just trying to be creative around how I can add that fun and business and blend them together again. And you have to be innovative in this time that we're in, and I believe it will be something that needs to continue in a longer term than people really think. So I'm already thinking about, okay, so I've had a 40-person wine tasting that went well, got a couple of introductions out of it, maybe some business out of it. Eventually in 2021, I want to maybe have an outdoor event like that with maybe 10 people present and 40 people virtually. I'm already thinking about how can I make that interaction work,
right,
with the winery, with the group, with a farm to fork meal that I could deliver to the people who are on the Zoom and the 10 people in attendance can enjoy. I'm already thinking, how am I going to do that in spring and summer of 2021 and innovate around what is one of the strongest areas of how I develop and create new business for my company. So, and I think that's happening everywhere. I'm watching different industries, the industries, just the people who would normally in my cul-de-sac come in, and every week or two, a month or so, I would get a business card from people who clean homes, and I would never pay it any mind. My wife's like, we got to get somebody, Well, now we're here every day. So there's a lot more going on in the house than it was prior. So I ended up hiring one, that we built this house 5 years ago. I've been ignoring them for 5 years, but this was a time for them to get more innovative. They've been knocking on the door and saying, hey, I clean your neighbor's home. Can I at least show you what we do or talk about, coming in once a month? That hadn't happened prior. They never had knocked on the door before or said, so people are taking this opportunity to innovate how they market, how they reach people. And it's important.
that's so key. That's so key. And on our end, we love helping businesses come up with those marketing strategies. And whether you're a small, mid-sized business or an entrepreneur, and you're working by yourself, everyone has to figure out, how do I approach customers differently? How do I position myself where, I'm an asset in these times, and that particular service for you guys, it's the right time. So, they have to make themselves known and available. Um, just to move on, because we want to get through some more good information for you guys right quick. I asked Berkley earlier about being comfortable and successful. And a really big key here, it can be a struggle to be successful, forgot the word being there, while so many are struggling around us. So these are some of the things you mentioned in terms of being more comfortable with success. Can you give us a quick breakdown on some of these points?
Yeah, it's tough. The news it's a continuous cycle, especially now that you're home. And I mean, I'm looking at people pulling up in their E-Class Mercedes, getting food put in the back of their trunk. That's real. Like, that's not, these are people for the first time ever who probably had to go get food because of what's happened to their industry. I deal with nothing but small and mid-sized companies. So my clients have had to help them give them breaks on what we charge them so that they could not furlough as many people. This is the work I've been doing. I've been walking them through the 90-page PPP document, breaking it down to 3 pages so that they can get it approved, get it forgiven, open their business up in the right way. Because again, in the long term, liability is going to be a big one. But it's mentally draining because if you have a heart, it's hard for me to, talk about adding, the pool that we were putting off for a few years when I'm watching people, trying to eat. That is just full transparency. It's not easy for me to do that. It's not easy to mentally balance that. So I had to increase, and I continuously increase. Our company has goals for us in giving back and helping. And what I did for myself was I need to do more outside of those goals. And what can I do? How can I help? How can I get involved? Because mentally it's just a shame to see it, right? It's not anything people brought on themselves. It was brought to us. And unfortunately, country didn't handle it too well, in my opinion. Less people will be in this position. But at the same time, it is tough to look at. So I'm trying to help as much as I can. My sister's a school teacher. I volunteer to talk to her students whenever she needs me. Making sure that my wife and I are giving donations to the organizations that are helping people out, making sure that we're not only supporting and feeling it, but we're also writing the check. And then at the same time, increasing my own skills during this time of having so much time, right? How can I make myself better? Because one day we will be on the other side of COVID, right? So how can I continue to make myself a better person, better at my job, better husband, better father? I want to continue to do that. And it is a mental balancing act. And I know a lot of people, the people who have no one, they're in a pandemic and they live alone and they lost their job. Wait a minute. Can you imagine the mental strain if I was sitting in that seat? I can't help but think about that and how, as a business person, just as a man, how I can help to contribute back to turning that part around. Small business is the one thing, and you've heard me say this before, Zach. The one thing politicians get right is they say small business employs the most people in America. It's the one statement they all say that's actually true. It's not a lot that they all say that's true, but that one is. So I think about the restaurants. I think about the people who set up concerts. I think about all of those jobs, people who have had careers doing these things and cannot do them now. So to balance that, I try my best to balance that by helping others, giving back, and making sure that I'm contributing in a positive way to us getting back to where we were.
That's awesome. I know it. That was all wonderful, incredible. I know what my wife and I did. We made an effort. We tried to do takeout at least once a week to support the local, and we weren't going to chains. We were going to local restaurants, even though even the chains, it still employs local people. So there is still a benefit there. We were buying gift cards for the restaurants that were, not able to open their doors. Any birthday presents we had to give, we were sending people gift cards to restaurants. Again, especially the local restaurants, not the chains. Tips, we were trying to tip larger than we normally would. A couple extra dollars probably means a lot more to the delivery person or the people in the restaurant than it does for us. Even just doing takeout, usually you don't tip for takeout, you tip when the service is actually provided. I was tipping for takeout. I was doing the work to pick up the food, but I would tip anyway.
Same neighborhood pizza place I've been going to for years, Kevin. I tip them when I pick up my food now because I see their chairs on top of the tables and I have to.
It's sad, yeah. Something that we've referenced our marketing agency a few times. We also have a printing company called the Homer Group. And, this pandemic has not been kind to the printing industry. We do a lot of work during trade show season with, trade show signage and, promotional products and everything. Well, guess what? There's no trade shows this year. Even in-person meetings, you don't need as many business cards and brochures and, pocket folders and stuff that you used to, because you're not going to those in-person meetings. So it's been a tough year. And one of the things that we did when the pandemic started was we created a program. There's actually a website for it called Sign of Gratitude, www.signofgratitude.com. And what we did was we started selling these lawn signs that all expressed different expressions of gratitude to different groups of essential workers. And what we did was for every sign sold, we made a donation to a group called Slice Out Hunger, which has actually started an initiative called Pizza versus Pandemic. And what they were doing was buying large volumes of pizza from local pizzerias around the country and giving them to large organizations of essential workers. So they'd be dropping off these pizzas to the hospitals for all the doctors, thank you to your wife, for her service, and, bring it to police stations and fire stations and, all those groups of essential workers. So, there we were, we found this program, this opportunity to keep our staff busy, and it wasn't huge, but every little bit counts, kept our staff busy. It was a good cause for the public, to put those signs out there and show your appreciation. And, people remember in the beginning of this pandemic, our community actually rallied together and supported each other. It wasn't political yet.
Exactly.
And then, this initiative of being able to support both local pizzerias and give, an additional thanks and additional gift to those essential workers who were really risking their lives at the time. It was a win-win situation. So that goes back just to the creativity. We had to pivot, we had to find something different, and this was something that benefited us all.
Right.
Yeah. I would be at Ronald McDonald House once a quarter cooking with my team from Insperity. I can name the charities in Philly that we would make sure we're a part of. We can't do that now, so it's like, we need to replace that. And how do we replace that? How do we make sure that those organizations keep going? Big part of what all of us need to make sure we're continuing to do as the country ticks back up after this.
Agreed. And guys, we're just gonna move on to our last thing, and I'm, just want to kind of go over some of these cool experiences that you shared, Berkley. But a quick check, Kevin. I don't know if we have any questions on Facebook, but if so, we can throw.
No, it's been a little quiet on Facebook. I've seen people popping in and out watching, but it's been quiet. No questions. So I guess we're crushing it here.
Awesome. So we'll kind of close with this virtual experience chat. And we touched on this earlier, but with so much interaction, both personal and work related, happening virtually, it's important to put energy into enhancing that experience. And there were a couple experiences that you mentioned to me, Berkley. And of course, we can chat about some other ideas. Super excited about the Scotch tasting you have coming up. I'm one of your guests for that event, and I'm excited. I got my right. I got my Scotch sampling pack in the mail the other day. I actually meant to do a little
I was about to ask.
Video, but I got a little tied up. But those sort of things, really do separate whoever's producing it and hosting it from those who don't. And I get it. It's not something that everyone can do or every company can do, whether it be can afford to do it, and things like that. But, putting that extra level of creativity and engagement into these virtual events, I think pay great dividends on the back end. You also have on here game nights and watch parties. But yeah, tell us a little bit about the events you're going to be producing, and any thoughts you have towards some of these other types of virtual experiences.
Yeah, so I've done about 4 wine tastings now. This will be my second Scotch tasting, and now we've added. We did one where they put the whole cheese and meat tray together, and everyone showed pictures of the tray they put together and the wine that they received. And the beauty of it was, listen, your spouse is there, please get them involved. So we had a lot of couples on the screen, which was great. So it's allowed us to have some fun and do business at the same time, which is a big part of how I balance work and life, is to keep some fun in it all. And I was thinking, believe me, this took I don't know, 3 months to put together in my head about how to actually start to connect these things and put them back to when are people going to even be comfortable enough to do something like this again with everything that's going on. And did the first one, and it went over well. So the wine tastings, I usually either have Napa Valley or the local wine school in Philadelphia send everyone the bottle of their choice, red, white, rosé, what they want. I also I either send cheeses, or now I'm actually able to send actual food. So that's the next one coming up. You'll see that coming soon, where we're going to match actual food with the wine. You'll get the food delivered and the wine, hopefully the same day is what we're hoping for. But it's again, the smiles on people's faces the first time it just, the entire thing went so well. They were asking, hey, can everybody pose for a picture? I'm snapping a picture of the screen. I mean, it was that much fun. So I'm like, okay, so that part of it works, right? I wanted to make sure it was engaging and fun, but then organized, right? How can we have some organization to it? Some level of being able to talk about business or whatever the topic is of that night. So I usually put a topic out, and usually have the winery or the Scotch people have their half hour, and then we talk about the topic, maybe 3 questions. We break out, come back into the discussion, and then everyone gets the follow-up list. You get everyone's name, email, you get the entire list to say, you may have you may have heard something that connects with your marketing company from someone on the call who's in need of marketing services, but you just didn't get the chance because we're virtual. Well, now is the time to follow up with that. So one of the things I do at the end, Zach, that I make sure I do is say, hey, listen, if you heard anything tonight, or even if you didn't, send everyone what you do in one page, one email, one attachment. Send it to us all so we can all see it, even if we didn't hear it or we missed it, we can all catch. And
Right.
also, everyone gets 30 seconds to actually say what that is. Even when you do that, though, some people are going to miss it. So I make sure I emphasize in the follow-up, and I love to see the emails afterwards, people sending out what they spoke about. It's starting to get some real momentum, and people are connecting again. So I'm going to keep it going. I'm going to keep it going. From a personal perspective, Thanksgiving is a time where my family gets together. I'm using this same experience to say, connect us all virtually. My grandmother is 98, right? And survived COVID. So, but I want her to be able to see us all on Thanksgiving. So I'm working on that right now. How is she going to have a tablet in front of her in every house? We're going to be able to all at the same half hour lock in, see everyone's home, see everyone's food, because we should not come together. It's clear science. We shouldn't do that, even in our own homes. What you would normally do, you shouldn't do. So you have to find a way to make it fun for your family, just like you do with business. So I'm, me, Zach, these things it's a work in progress with doing it virtually, but
Right.
I can say it's been fun and people are working. The watch parties were around the NBA playoffs. Was more of, again, you can find like-minded people in your network that like basketball, and that was something to do. And then game nights, one of the big ones was the poker or blackjack nights. People really like playing cards virtually. I did not know that. I was a part of one. I had nothing to do with it. I was invited, and I'm like, hey, I gotta actually try and do that one time. So it's again, aesthetically, things may not change for you, but you can change what's happening while you're home.
Right. Right. I guess I'm slightly embarrassed to say I've had a few virtual poker nights end at like 3 a.m.
There you go.
Last few months, and I did not come out the victor. So it was not good. But no, I really appreciate you being on and chatting with us today, Berkley. For the folks who are watching, whether it be live or eventually on YouTube, awesome guy to connect with. Again, beyond even if you need his service, for your business, awesome dude to connect with. He's happy to connect you with other folks that may benefit you or vice versa. So make sure you shoot Berkley an email. You have his email here on the screen, berkley.harmon@insperity.com. And Berkley, any parting words for our viewers today?
Yeah, listen, I just want to say, this will pass as well. We'll be back. We'll be back. We'll be doing things again. And if you have the means and the ability, give back in some way with everything that's happening. There are a percentage of us where our income and all of that never changed. Some of us, it even went up in this pandemic for some of us. Find a way to help. That would be my parting words. And thanks for having me, for sure. This is an awesome platform. I wish you guys nothing but success. You ever need me, I'm here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Great final words, and hopefully we'll bring you back again. Maybe we'll find some other topics to bring you in on, because this was a great conversation. We really we all gelled very well. And I hope our viewers found it to be as interesting and entertaining as I did. But this was great. So hopefully, for anybody watching, hopefully this is not the last you've seen of Berkley on our Thursday Thoughts series.
Indeed, indeed. And we have a trend of bringing back guests for a second time. Our next Thursday Thoughts in 2 weeks is going to feature Gary Curtis from Sales Tips 101, diving into a new sales topic that we can't wait to have and share with you all. So again, thank you for joining us on Thursday Thoughts. We will see you on a future Thursday. And again, big thanks to Berkley for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks, guys.